This is the second segment, a reading of a deep contemplation on the Exodus, which was written by Kalonymous Kalman Shapira. May God avenge his blood. He was the last Rebbe, and he was killed by the Nazis on his way to Treblinka. He was the Rebbe of the Warsaw ghetto. He had 5,000 students. None of them wore tefillin. They were all under the age of bar mitzvah, so they didn't have to, but he was the Rebbe of the children in Warsaw, and eventually the Warsaw ghetto. And he was an expert on meditation. Let's meditate on the Exodus. This is what the Rebbe said. And they embittered their lives with hard labor, with mortar and bricks and all manner of agricultural work. The cruel Egyptian taskmasters had no need of the buildings that they forced the Jews to build. Their desire was only to torture the Israelites and embitter their lives. Thus it was solely out of cruelty that they invented the project of having the Jews build the cities of Pitom and Ramses. The footnote in the original text points out that the narrative first has the Egyptians saying, "Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and join our enemies." And only afterwards it says, and builds treasure cities for Pharaoh, Pitom and Ramses. The point being, what is the point? In other words, the building of the cities had no purpose. They just wanted to make the Jews suffer. So building these cities was not the only way the Egyptians tortured the Jews and caused them to suffer. But even after the cities were built, they devised new forms of torture. The Talmud in Sota tells us that in the eyes of the Egyptian, the life of a Jew was worth less than that of an animal. A Jewish life was not only cheap when they sent Jews into the wilderness to perform life-threatening tasks of capturing lions and bears. They scorned the lives of the Jews even amid Egyptian metropolises. Parenthetically, I'll say that I think today a lot of folks would really enjoy going to the forest and capturing a lion or a bear. However, once this Hollywood is one thing and real life is another, and when it's against somebody's will, it's called slavery. It's torture. So they scorned the lives of the Jews even amid the Egyptian cities. Every wicked Egyptian idiot, every shameful Egyptian teenager would brazenly curse and beat every respected elder of Israel, breaking their bones or even killing them. They're the Egyptian punks. Don't let the politically correct crowd hear this, because they'll say, what about teenagers' rights? What about all those wonderful kids? What about those Egyptian teenagers? What about ancient Egyptian teenagers? What are they, a bunch of punks? What is this, racism? I guess poppycock. We're talking about thugs. We're talking about hooligans. Okay. Who all they really want to do is express anger and destroy. Maybe there were some nice Egyptians, but they weren't exactly in the consensus. So that's ridiculous, eh? It's a joke, right? So no, it's important. We're focusing on the degradation of the Jews in Egypt, which is undeniable. Society could degrade to a point where so many members of that society have a focus of hatred to the point of genocide. It's happened before, and God willing, it will never happen again. closing parenthesis and going back to the Rebbe's teachings. So the Egyptian punks would beat up the honored elders of Israel. There were a few Jews who did not go around with broken bones. There were very few Jews who went around without a broken bone, if not tokens of their oppressions and wanton beatings in the streets, then surely from being forced to do labor far beyond their physical abilities. They would beat them until their bodies were covered with bruises and lesions, making the Jews thoroughly abhorred. Come, let us deal wisely with them. This became the Egyptian obsession, their single thought night and day, a harrowing mantra clinging to their lips. Come, let us deal wisely with them. And truly, they invested all of their wisdom and craftiness in devising more and more painful tortures to embitter the lives of the Israelites, as if they had no other reason to live other than torment the Jews. This became their raison d'etre for both the young and the old, from the simple Egyptian in the street to the kings and the king and his advisors in the palaces. If a few days passed without seeing the invention of a new clever means of torture, they would simply increase the workload and demand more and more impossible tasks. For instance, they would make men perform women's work, and men and women do the labor of men. Meaning there's certain work which is appropriate for a man, pulling heavy things. And there's certain work that is appropriate for a woman. And it's hard for some men, who they're by nature, they just can't do that kind of difficult endurance work. And there's certain work that the women, that a woman, let's say they would take a woman whose physique would not allow her to do the harsh labor, for instance. And a man, what kind of example would be of a man doing woman's work? Okay, traditionally woman's work is like in the kitchen and in the children and sewing and spinning and these kinds of things. And so there could be a man who was locked in a room to spin 12 hours a day. It would be sheer torture for him, where there maybe there is a woman who would have greater endurance for such a difficult task. Or, I don't know, I'm speculating. He says he would have the men do women's work and the women do men's work. But what that means, I would like a response to somebody give me an example if this is, regardless of politically correct attitudes in the Western world of 2009. Okay. Either it says in the book of Psalms, even the bird has found a home and the swallow a nest for herself. In those dark days the birds may have found rest, but the sons of Israel, crushed by labor from the moment the cock crowed, his body bruised and his bones beaten each endless day, was not allowed to go home at night. He had to sleep in the fields with a pillow of clay and a blanket of mud. This was their lot until Moshe came and made arrangements with the rulers of Egypt, allowing the Jews to rest on the Shabbos. Rest, yes, but not necessarily to go home. Many a mother or father did not know his child, and many a child did not know his parents, for they could not go home for months, or a year, or years, only wasting away night and day in the fields, the factories, making the bricks out of clay, working with the clay, degraded, chased, beaten. The rogue snakes dealt wisely, so deceitfully with the children of Egypt.